Welcome to today's SPSS webinar. Today on the phone you have Austin Rutherford. I look after the data analytics practice here at eCapital. And along with me is Andrew Van Eschen. He was the pre-sales solution specialist. So for the next 30 minutes, you're going to spend some time with us. We're going to walk through some SPSS capability and update. So for the agenda, we're going to go through first kind of an intro to analytics and SPSS. And then quickly go into what's new. There's been a new release recently on SPSS Modeler 18. Give some background and then quickly get into a demo. So we'll have about 5-10 minutes of slides, go into a demo, and then a brief question and answer format. So this is a part of a series of webinars eCapital is hosting on various technologies, and hopefully you'll enjoy. So first up, why analytics, why SPSS? Why is it relevant? Is it worth doing? Well, if you take a look at the market's seeing huge success and ROI on companies that are actually leveraging predictive analytics. For the companies that are and using it for click rate, they're seeing 75% higher click-through rate. They're seeing approximately 73% higher sales lift than their competitors that are not using predictive analytics. From a bottom line perspective, the ROI of business analytics solutions that incorporates predictive analytics is about 250%. And this isn't myself saying it or IBM saying this. This is coming from some third-party analysts such as Aberdeen and IDC. But what's also great about predictive analytics, it's not about one particular industry or line of business. It can virtually be used with any data to help improve virtually any decision. There's some popular ones out there that can be used across any industry, like customer retention, cross-sell, upsell. Maybe it's looking for claims in the insurance industry, employee attrition, trying to anticipate that and deal with that, anticipating sales forecasting, student success, fraud detection, and even donor management. So just some brief examples of how predictive analytics could be used in any industry. The next slide here, in terms of different technologies, there's lots of players out there. This is from the Forrester Wave. You can see that IBM's in the upper right, the place to be. And really this has to do with the complete portfolio of capability that IBM offers in the wide spectrum of analytics. So this slide really focuses first on SPSS, but really if you take a step back on it, this really even applies to IBM as a whole. IBM really offers the most comprehensive analytics platform. Being able to leverage all data, whether it's structured and unstructured, in various different formats, helping prepare the data, and you could prepare it via SPSS Modeler. They have data wrangling tools. You could be performing analytics at scale using Modeler, and this could be in a batch mode. This could be on the desktop. Lots of different ways you can do it using simple algorithms, very complex algorithms. You can be translating the insight into action, so you can actually do real-time scoring. So as new claims come in, or you wanted to look for fraud, waste, or abuse, all of those things could be real-time. It could be exposed as APIs. You can embed it within BI reports, which you'll see it as a part of the demo today. Really great capability of taking all of the things you've learned from predictive analytics and applying them real-time into your apps. And then the users, they could be people, they could be systems, strategic, operational, or real-time. So SPSS Modeler, which is what the demo is going to be about today, this is really the business analyst or data scientist workbench. Anywhere in between, they can get value from the system. It's very easy to use, graphical based, so it's drag and drop, visual workflow, so you're going to see from a graphical perspective, the inputs, the targets. You can select a lot of automatic processing of data. You can access all of your data, whether it's structured, unstructured, or from various sources, and pull it together. And you really can leverage the full ecosystem of data investments you've made, whether that's Cognos, Netezza, Infosphere, and even System Z. There's a few themes as a part of the SPSS Modeler version 8 that they've broken out to. And we're not going to cover all of the new features of version 8, but we're going to cover a couple of them. So there's empowering every user, unlocking more data, and ground-to-cloud flexibility. And we'll go through these individually. So the good news is well, in the past, this isn't the good news. In the past, you had to actually have certain versions of Modeler to use some of the big data algorithms. Now the big data algorithms are available in Modeler, desktop, and server, so you get all of them. They even can be ran, pushed down to a database like Netezza. So every user now has the capability. You don't have to have a special Modeler version. Next one, which is pretty cool. There's now a feature called the Extension Hub that's part of the Windows menu. You can click on that, and it's part of a community. You can add in existing or additional nuggets or extensions. So it might be things like using the Watson ones, which are pretty cool. You can convert languages from English to Spanish or Spanish to English. You can do some text analysis, so you can learn information about the background of the text or the English that's inside of there. It gives you some really cool things. You can do holiday lookup, so if you have a date and you want to match it up against a holiday calendar up in the cloud. Really cool capabilities of doing additional analytics or transformations that the open source community might have published or IBM might have published. Next slide. Some more. This is more on the Extension Hub. You can easily search. You can leverage Watson, geospatial, JSON formats, lots of different things. All right, the next one up is and this has to do with kind of the ground to cloud flexibility. There's desktop versions, there's versions up in the cloud. There's now Windows 10 support with Modeler version 18, and there's also Macintosh support. So if you're like me and have a Macintosh, you don't have to go switch to the Windows VM to use your Modeler version. It's pretty cool. There's also if you don't currently own SPSS Modeler, you can go out to this URL and you can do a trial for 30 days. You can download the Windows or the Mac version, install it locally, and try it out for 30 days. Next couple slides are again kind of focusing on the community. So it's a lot easier now with this version where you can actually go and get some help. You can go to forums. If you go to the next slide here, you'll see there's a capability from the community features from the menu. You can go to the forums. You can go to the blogs, links to YouTube videos directly from the SPSS Modeler. And there's also even links to support. So directly from SPSS Modeler, you can click on a button and it'll bring you to a web page where you can log a PMR, which is a support ticket, or start to engage in a live chat with a SPSS support technician. So here it is. You can see the links. You can go to SPSS forums, and then the actual analytics community. Get some help as well. So that's where this is included in the menu. All right, lastly here, before we get into the demo, I think everyone's heard of Bluemix or Watson, and people have been asking, hey, can I take the predictive models that I develop in SPSS Modeler, and can I use those up on Bluemix anywhere? And the answer is yes. You can now take the models that you've built. You could write some custom apps, and you can publish those models to a service, to the predictive analytics service that's up on Bluemix. You can write a Ruby app, a Python app, whatever you like, whatever the runtimes support up on Bluemix, and you can bind to the models that you've developed. And this is really kind of the holy grail of predictive analytics, where you can start writing your own custom apps. You can deploy them up in the cloud and get very, very fast performance. All right, next up we have Andrew. He's going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough.
Perfect. I am really excited, guys. There's so much good information that Austin had touched on there, and I'm really excited to kind of share with you what SPSS is. So before I kind of jump into that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background as far as what I'm trying to do here with SPSS. So the first kind of screen I'm looking at, this is a Cognos BI report, and for a lot of you guys out there, right, you're either a Cognos BI shop and user today, or maybe you're using TM1. But I'm kind of starting in this type of view, because what I want to do is I want to start to trend out some of my sales details, right? So as Austin talked about all the different examples, there was a sales forecast. I'm a sales analyst. I want to know, where do we need to have our inventory levels at, because I'm seeing a big uptick in the web. So for the next 6 months, I really want to be able to understand kind of what we're anticipating in overall revenue, so I can kind of do a back solve calculation to figure out maybe what our units are or how much inventory we have on hand. Are we at the right levels? Do we need to adjust somewhere? So that's kind of my use case for this scenario. So I'm just looking at a very quick report where I can actually see all of my different order methods for my different products, right? So whether it's by email, it's by mail, it's web, clearly web has been trending up significantly higher over the last couple of years. If I get down to a very specific country, so maybe it's the US, I just want to see how we're doing in the US, right? Once again, that trend is very prevalent. The web is taken off significantly, and it's actually getting to be a little bit stronger here in the second half of this most recent year. If I scroll down a little bit, I can see by month, kind of how we're trending up on that web front, so about 25 to 26 million. Is that going to continue on? I'd really like to know if that trend is going to happen, and continue to move forward or upwards, or if it's going to flatten off. So I want SPSS to actually help me understand that. So when I jump over to SPSS here, let me give you a little bit of a lay of the land of kind of what SPSS a modeler is. So as I jump in here, kind of this whole white space area, think of this as more of your work area, workbench, right? I've got a stream that's built out, and that's what we refer to as kind of that logical process, moving from left to right, kind of pulling in some data, doing some manipulations, creating that model, and finally pushing that data back out. So that's more of a stream, as we would call that. At the bottom here is think about this as your workbench, your toolbox, right, where I can access different items. So maybe it's some favorites that I've used before. It's some source nodes, right? So where's that data coming from? Is it coming from a database, whether it's SQL or it's Oracle or it's Netezza? Am I pulling stuff in from flat files, fixed files? Is it a Cognos BI report, a TM1 object or cube, right? So a lot of you guys that are utilizing those two technologies today, you have direct access to that information. I also have the ability to do some data manipulation, so some different options in recording and field ops where I can do some merges, some sorts, some aggregations. Field ops being, do I want to create new fields based upon what I have available? Do I want to let SPSS do some auto data prep? So I have multiple assets, and from an end user standpoint, right, maybe I'm not the most savvy on data preparation. I have the ability to pull in, different auto prep nodes, as we'd call them, to let SPSS actually do some of that data prep for me. Now, beyond just the data prep and being able to do a lot of that in here, I also have the ability to do some modeling, some outputs, some exports. From a modeling standpoint, right, I have the ability to do it on a server basis. So as Austin talked on, going to more of an analytics server, so kicking things out to, whether it's to Netezza, it's using some of that big data. I've got classification, association, segmentation, right? So to the extent that I want to do all of these different types of nodes, whether it's a two-step, or we've got some linear regression, some shade nodes, some CNR trees, right? I've got a laundry list of different models I can use. But if you're like me and I'm more of a sales analyst, I don't know what any of these really represent, I can let SPSS actually do what's called an auto, whether it's classifier, it's numeric, it's a cluster, to help me understand what is the best model for this instance, right? So what it'll do is it'll actually pair through and say, hey, here's 15 models we're going to run against the data set you've provided, and I'm just going to do a ranking on each of them to figure out what is the most predictive. Based upon that, you can choose which one you'd like to use and utilize that to help answer that question. So a lot of very cool, powerful components in here that, as Austin talked about, I don't have to be a data scientist to use this tool. I can be a business analyst or even just an analyst as a whole and really quickly come in and start to utilize this tool. Now, I've got a stream here that I've kind of built out that's helping me answer that question about how is my revenue trending? Do I need to be concerned? Am I over, am I under? Do I need to adjust my inventory levels? So I've actually pulled in some data from my BI report, right? I've loaded that in. Here's my node right here. Now, if I want to kind of see that output of what's actually being pulled in, I can simply drag in a table node and connect these very quickly to see that information. So if I just wanted to simply run that and see what that result set looks like or what that report's pulling in, I can run that. It'll take a couple seconds here, but it'll give me a full table view of that whole report and all the data that I'm looking to load. Now, the one thing you'll see as this pulls up is I've got some different order numbers, my dates, that method, the quantity, revenue, some additional criteria, right? But maybe I just want to focus on that revenue and actually know kind of what that trend is. So I can use kind of this type node where I can define, hey, what's my target and what am I curious to know more about? So if I want to do that forecast on revenue, I can identify that forecast as being my target for this model. Now, I've kind of done a little bit of a data prep here to get things, in more of a time series. But when I run this through the actual model, what it's going to create is this nugget for me. And you see this little diamond down here in SPSS is referred to as a nugget. But what it's going to give me is the full output of that model based upon that target of revenue. So it's going to tell me all of my confidence intervals, all of my values. It's going to, push this out a few months and give me the relative revenue that it sees fit based upon that model. So once again, if I just wanted to see that, I can quickly double click on it, or I can connect this and actually see this in more of a tabular form, which is what I'm curious to know, is kind of how is this data actually being structured? What are the new fields being created? And what are the values of that revenue that we're looking for? So I'll give this a second to run. Kind of looks very familiar to what we saw before, but if I scroll to the right here, what I'll see is some additional columns, and they've included a new little TI indicator field, indicating that it's part of the model output. So I can see here's a predicted revenue for each coinciding year and month, right? And as I scroll down, I can start to see we're kicking into that next time period where it's the future months, right? These are the new months that haven't been put into the system that roll over from 2013 to 14, where I have my predicted data. Now, this is all good and this looks great, but I want to see this in another form. So let me just kick this over to more of a graphical view where I can very quickly start to paint that picture of here's my actual revenue, here's my predicted revenue, and see how that is trending over that time period, just to get some accuracy around that model. So as this loads up, let me maximize this so we can see it a little better. I can actually see that revenue field and that predicted revenue field and how those two intertwine. So I've got a trend line floating through the middle so I can get a little bit of a sense on kind of how it's actually trending. But I've got the red indicator here, so it looks like it's based upon the model, it's going to continue to outperform and improve. Really, there's no slowdown here. It's just going to get higher and higher for each individual coinciding month for that web result set. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I mean, that looks pretty good. I know now that I can't just assume that the model is going to, or our web sales are going to taper off in the near future, like they kind of did at the tail end of 2012. They're actually going to continue to go higher and higher. So I need to make some phone calls and readjust some inventory to make sure that we've got enough material on hand to offset this increase in sales. So the last thing that I really want to do now that I have this, I've been working with this on my own, but I want to be able to send this off to some other users inside of my BI community or my Cognos community. So I want to run an export and actually export this data back out so I can build a report off of it. So you see this last little node, which is a Cognos BI export. So I have the ability to push this, just like I pulled directly from Cognos, I can push it directly back into Cognos BI and be able to consume that same data in the same format. So if I jump back over to my BI environment, I can actually see that trend report, right? With the same look and feel where I've got my revenue, I can see the predicted months. I've also incorporated in some confidence intervals, right, as part of my data set to show me, hey, Andrew, best case, worst case, where are we going to fall? Based upon the data and what we're seeing, are we going to be, an extra 5 million below, 5 million above? Tell me a little bit more about that. So I can very quickly start to paint that picture of here's where we're trending, here's what our absolute max would be, and if I need the numbers behind it, I can scroll down to the very bottom and see kind of that midpoint, the lower confidence interval, and the upper, right there. Very quickly, very seamlessly, I have that information. So this is one of the coolest things about it is the integration with all of the other IBM analytics tools, is the ability to push and pull that data from one piece to the next. So this has really helped me understand that, yeah, we need to make some adjustments because we're going to continue to sell a ton of product on the web. So I need to make sure my inventory matches that.
This is great stuff, Andrew. I think you did an excellent job on pulling all the pieces together across the IBM components, whether it be pulling from DB2 or pulling from a flat file or Excel spreadsheet, loading it into Modeler, doing some basic analysis, and then feeding it into a predictive model, consuming it in various formats, whether it be just a quick chart or graph within Modeler, or even inside of the existing Cognos BI infrastructure that this company has in-house. So fantastic job. So next we're going to open up the questions, and you can enter in your questions as part of the chat window. A couple of them have already kind of queued up here. We'll start to go through those. Let's see, this first one here is, can the analytical modeling or the model building, can it be pushed down into the database, or does it require to be done inside of the client desktop? Great question. So you can do either. So if you have small data sets and you want to do it simply, you can do it inside of the model or desktop, and just like you have in the past. And now with a number of different big data technologies, whether it's Netezza or using Hadoop, you can actually push down those algorithms, even the SQL or the generation of the data sets inside of the database. So nothing needs to be pulled across the network to crunch it down and build the analytical models. This can take things that in the past might have taken, if you have moderate to large data sets, might have taken hours to days, or maybe not even ever finished, to something that could take seconds or minutes. And that really gives the capability, this is probably why you're asking the question, so you can generate these models a lot faster. Or in data science terms, you're allowed to fail faster, so you can create more iterations, because building analytical models is usually about getting a model, testing it, making adjustments, and you usually go through many, many different adjustments before you come up with a final model. So great question. All right, next question here. They must have attended one of our other webinars or maybe the recent cloud data workshops. Can you connect to a DB? You absolutely can. So for those who don't know what DB is one of the cloud data sources. Think of it as associated with DB2 Blue and Netezza up in the cloud. So you can have modeler both connect to DB and write to it. So that's a great question. Last question here. After you build a model, what can you do with it? So I'm guessing this question is relating towards, we showed how you could use it on the screen, produce a report. That's one example. You can take that model and you could push it into a database to do real-time scoring against new data. You could actually deploy it now. You could save it off and deploy it to a Bluemix service and have applications that are built against it. So you can have, whether it be new streams of data that's inputted in on the fly. So you can actually write custom applications and use that model. So great question. Cool. Well, that appears to be all the questions we have for today. I appreciate everyone spending roughly 30 minutes with Andrew and I. And we'll talk to you next week on the next webinar. Take care.
Thank you.